If you're dying to see California Congressman Adam Schiff, just turn on the television at any point in the day, anytime, any channel, because the top-ranking Dem on the House Intel Committee is the main proponent of the Russia collusion narrative.
All you have right now is a circumstantial case.
Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is more than that. I don't want to go into specifics, but I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial. One of the messages that this Russian advocate may have taken back to Moscow is the Trump administration would be very amenable to repealing the Magnitsky Act. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Here's the problem. He's like a carnival barker, but there's nothing under the tent. There's not a shred of evidence backing up his accusations. But that doesn't stop him from playing the mainstream media like a fiddle. And we're going to discuss this now with Michelle Malkin in a moment. But first, let's go to Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry with more. Ed.
Good to see you, Laura. The fact that allies of President Trump are now turning up the heat on Schiff may help explain why today the top Democrat on the House Intel Committee tried to point the finger elsewhere. Schiff tweeting, quote, "I'm increasingly worried Republicans will shut down the House Intelligence Committee investigation at the end of the month." Adding, quote, "It appears Republicans want to conduct just enough interviews to give the impression of a serious investigation." Well, how serious has that investigation been? Let's dive deep on what happened when Donald Trump Jr. arrived to testify on December 6th behind closed doors for over 7 hours. While he was still behind closed doors mid-testimony, CNN was already posting stories suggesting Donald Trump Jr. was testifying to something nefarious. CNN reporting that according to multiple sources familiar with the testimony that was still going on, quote, "Donald Trump Jr. told House investigators he did not communicate directly with his father when confronted with news reports about his June 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Instead, Trump Jr. said he was speaking to White House aide Hope Hicks about how to respond to the reports." That sparked a flurry of reports suggesting maybe Hope Hicks, the White House communications director, had some deeper, unspecified role in a collusion narrative, even though it was not clear that there was anything criminal or even inappropriate about those conversations. Well, the new information I'm told tonight by Republicans close to the committee is that Donald Trump Jr. and his attorney were asked to surrender their phones before he went behind closed doors for that testimony. But then during the hours of testimony, they noticed Adam Schiff was leaving the room at various times. And then these stories started popping up on CNN and elsewhere about the testimony, leading them to believe the leaks were coming right from the top. But since Trump Jr.'s team didn't have their phones, they didn't find out about these stories popping up on CNN and elsewhere until several hours after the testimony started. That's why they're demanding the Justice Department investigate whether it was Adam Schiff himself or other top Democrats that did the leaking. And they think that's why Schiff came out today, Laura, and started trying to shift the blame and say the Republicans are trying to shut down this investigation. They're saying Donald Trump Jr. was testifying to what he knew, and during the testimony, leaks were springing up everywhere.
I love that, leaving the room. It's like kids in class where they're leaving to like get the notes that they stored under the toilet or something in the bathroom. And I appreciate it. Thanks so much. And joining us now with a reaction from Colorado Springs, Michelle Malkin, the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV. Michelle, I mean, you cannot make this up. It is so patently obvious what's been going on. There's zero to the Russian collusion story, but Schiff is trying to fan any ember that's out there, and he runs out of the committee meeting, and that's what he had to have been doing. I'm sure he's not going to the bathroom that much unless he has some undisclosed prostate problem or urinary tract problem that we're not aware of. But what do we make of this perpetual tease by Adam Schiff?
Yeah, well, there definitely is a leak problem, and it may not be urological in nature, but certainly I think the question here is, Laura, will, as that old World War II saying used to go, loose lips sink Schiff? And I'm glad the heat is being turned up on him. I'd like to know how we say Blabby McBlabbermouth in Russian, because this diversionary tactic, this tweet storm, I think is an indication that he's quite worried that it'll be traced back to him. And it is interesting, isn't it, Laura, that when Mr. Blabby McBlabbermouth of the House Intelligence Committee goes on the Collusion Narrative Network, that they never ask him about all of these botched stories that clearly seem to point back to whoever's leaking these false stories in the first place.
And Michelle, there could obviously be a violation of House ethics rules because you are not to be giving this information to the press or to anyone when it's a closed-door session like this. And yet somebody, and I mean, I don't know who else it could have been. I mean, I guess it could be someone else, but he's the only one who kept leaving the room. And he's the only one out there day after day after day teasing, as you saw with Chuck Todd, not just circumstantial evidence, he said, but we have other evidence of Russian collusion. And then there's never, and again, it's a perpetual tease. There's never any payoff. Yes, I mean, Adam Schiff has fired more duds than the North Korean missile program over the last year. And the question is just as much about his culpability. At the very least, as you say, these would be ethical violations from the House Ethics Committee. But then there's also all of the enablers in the media who have put him on nonstop. And I think there actually have been records of the amount of time he has spent shilling for the collusion narrative. So what happened to all of the layers of fact checkers? Where's the extreme vetting from all of the other networks that put him on nonstop to blab like this? Well, where's CNN and MSNBC saying, okay, like, where are the goods? I mean, you've been promising this since March. So give us something. You said your sources will be confirming. You'll have more on Friday, next week, the week after, and then there's nothing that comes. Michelle, I want to move on to another topic that I know you and I have spent a lot of years talking about, and that's immigration. There's a lot of concern that the Trump administration might have its hands